Jot down there, title this there Quadrilaterals, and this should be nothing new for you. We've talked about these before, but you need to know these basic four-sided shapes. The quadrilateral has four sides. I guess the first one is if you have a shape that has no parallel sides. Should make this really long. No parallel sides. Four sides with no parallel sides. In our world, we call that, and this may be the only time in your life you ever hear this word, a trapezium. Trapezium. Which doesn't even make sense because it doesn't even look like a trapeze. Trapezium. You probably do know the quadrilateral that has only one side of set of parallel sides. What is this shape that has one set of parallel sides? Sounds like trapezium, but it's not. It is, Alex, a
trapezoid.
A trapezoid. I'm sure there's some hidden meaning into that, like why a trapezium and a trapezoid look almost alike, but they're not. No parallel trapezium, one parallel trapezoid. Now to the fun ones. We'll try this. If it has two sets of parallel sides, two sets of parallel sides. What is the exact definition of this bad boy right here? Haley? It is. Just like a telegram, but it's a parallelogram. I'm running out of room. And fortunately for you, I have this thing here. That didn't work very well, did it? What do we got left here? Four-sided shapes we haven't talked about yet would be, what's the difference between a parallelogram? Well, let's do this one first. Something with all equal sides, and I know you're going to want to say square, but I'm going to tell you the one that's not a square that has all equal sides. All equal sides. Anybody? That's not a square, by the way. In case that was what you were mumbling there. All equal sides, Brooke calls a
Rhombus.
Yep, a rhombus. Just like Kurt Rhombus. Everybody know who Kurt Rhombus was?
No.
Played for the Lakers. Find one yet. Just a little bit there. Now, what's the difference between, well, I guess we'll go this one, sorry. Something that has four right angles. Quadrilateral with four right angles equals, anybody's favorite, a rectangle. And the last one that everybody was very anxious about is square. Now, what is the exact definition of a square, though? It has to be exactly this, Ryan.
All right angles and all sides are equal.
Right, it has to be 4 right angles and 4 equal sides. And that is the exact definition of a square. And you need to know these exact definitions because, you know, there's going to be times when they ask you things like this. Technically speaking, if they ask you all the names that apply to this, the obvious one is that that is a 4-sided shape with all equal sides and 4 right angles, and it is. Its most specific name is a square. But it also, because of the definition of a rectangle just needs to have 4 right angles. This is also a rectangle. It is also a rhombus because the definition of a rhombus is just 4 equal sides. It is also a parallelogram. Okay, all 4 of these are true. A square actually is each of those things. The more specific thing, you know, we always call it a square, but if it asks you to give all the names that apply, you have to give all the names. Okay, you don't have to tell me it's a quadrilateral because they'll say this is a quadrilateral. Or a rectangle. Besides being a rectangle, what else is that? What else could you call it? Looking at your definitions there, Alex?
A parallelogram.
It is a parallelogram. Or the book will throw this at you. They will say, are all parallelograms rectangles? Are all parallelograms rectangles? Or they'll just say all parallelograms are rectangles, true or false. Is every parallelogram that you could draw also a rectangle? Can you draw me a parallelogram that's not a rectangle? Alex says no, to which I would say, Alex, is this not a parallelogram? Yes. Is it a rectangle? No, because a rectangle has to have 4 right angles. So the answer to this, are all parallelograms rectangles? The answer is absolutely positively no. What if I switch it around and say, are all rectangles parallelograms? Which would mean, can you draw me a rectangle that is not a parallelogram? Or can you draw me a rectangle that doesn't have opposite sides that are parallel? Well, here's a rectangle. Is that a parallelogram? Yes or no?
Yes.
Here's a rectangle. Is that a parallelogram?
Yes.
Here's a rectangle. Is that a parallelogram? All rectangles are parallelograms, yes. So you have to be careful because not all parallelograms are rectangles, but all rectangles are parallelograms. A little bit like this. Are all the girls in here 6th graders, yes or no?
No. Yes.
Okay. Will you go to 5th grade then? I thought you said you were supposed to be in 5th. So are all the girls in here 6th graders?
Yes.
Yes. Are all the 6th graders in here girls?
No.
Same thing is true with that. You know, one word, the converse to everything is not always true. Right out of the book, it asks you this question. Are all squares rhombuses? Are all squares rhombuses? And you really need to look at the exact definition of it. What is the exact definition of a square? 4 right angles, 4 equal sides. What's the definition of a rhombus? Just 4 equal sides. Can you draw a square that doesn't have 4 equal sides? No, then this would be true. All squares have to be rhombuses. Sit down and draw yourself a couple of them and try to find one that doesn't have 4 equal sides. So the answer to this is yes. But if I flip it around and say, are all rhombuses squares? The question then is, can you draw a rhombus? Can you draw something that has 4 equal sides that's not a square? Well, this has 4 equal sides, yeah, it's a square, but so does this. That has 4 equal sides, and it's not a square. So are all rhombuses squares? No. So it gets a little confusing, and you have to look at the exact definitions, and really you have to look at your little sheet there. Are all squares rectangles? Can you tell what that means? Sure. Are all squares rectangles? Noah? Draw me a square that's not a rectangle, sir.
Are all squares rectangles?
Yes.
Oh, no. Yes.
Is every square a rectangle?
Yes.
Yes, because there's no square that you can draw that wouldn't have 4 right angles in it. Are all rectangles squares, Sammy?
No.
Can you draw a rectangle that's not a square?
Yeah.
Yeah. This one. Man, that was difficult.